Good evening, Nick family. Welcome to the Queen's Court for another show. As always, I got a lot to say. I want to welcome Josh, aka Uncle Fulio from the Controversy. He's back. Chris, who hasn't been here in a few weeks, she's back. And Tony Crowe from Knicks and Bruises will also be dropping by. Today we're going to talk about Randall signing. We're going to talk about Summer League, some controversial takes on free agency, which is apropos. We got Mr. Controversy here himself, so I'm sure he's going to have a lot to say about it. A few shows ago, if you remember, me, Josh, Tony gave our rosters who we wanted the Knicks to sign in free agency. So today we're going to compare that with who the Knicks actually signed and give our takes on that. Before we start, again, I want to show love to Sim, making all of this possible. Show love to all the MBK content creators. We got you covered for all of your Knick news. If you haven't already, check out Josh video, the latest one, the controversy on free agency. It was fire, as always. Yesterday, if you haven't seen it already, Sim did a pre and post game show on the Knicks' first Summer League game. So check that out. That was also fire. I was on that panel. Josh was on that panel as well. And then lastly, I want to show love to Jay Boogie, who lost his sister. He's a big supporter of the show, a big supporter of mine. So, condolences to him and his family. A lot of us, if not most of us, have lost somebody, really close to us. So we know how painful that could be. So much love to Jay Boogie and his family. And the last thing I want to say is, excuse my dogs in the background. They really cutting up today. So I apologize in advance. The last thing I want to say is free agency. Kemba Walker has brought up a lot of strong feelings in the Knick community, and I just want to say, listen, we can disagree without being disagreeable, without being insulting and condescending. I mean, I was on a show where a panelist almost got thrown off for just saying his opinion, on the front office. Listen, we family. If you're a Knick fan, then you are part of the Knick family. The Knicks are exciting again. They're doing a lot of things. There's a lot of expectations from the fan base. We are not all going to agree. And it's okay. Let's just try to be easy about it and learn from different opinions. I mean, since I've been part of the MBK fam, I learned a lot from the panelists. I've learned a lot from Knick Twitter. I've learned a lot from you in the chat. During the shows, when I go back and read your comments, I'm learning. I had my own take on ball. I wanted the Knicks to go after them. Somebody on Twitter outline, exactly why he didn't think he fit with the Knicks. I didn't agree with all of it, but it opened my mind, right, to something different. Same thing with Demar Derozan. Not a big fan, or wasn't a big fan. I don't know who it is, took the time to do like 18 points on Demar Derozan's game on Twitter with video. Wow. And I watched it, and, it opened my mind that even though he doesn't stretch the floor, he's a mid-range maestro. He's a playmaker. He may not be a great defensive player, but how many NBA players are? And it just helped me, open my mind to there's different ways to play this game, and there's different takes, and it's okay, family. So let's just bring it down and be easy, because it's not about. We are fans, but it's okay to bring legitimate points up, which we're going to do today. So just buckle up. There's going to be some controversial takes in this show as well. That being said, Josh, Chris, how are you two doing?
Go ahead, Queen. You got it. You got it, Chris.
I'm good. I'm actually upstate at my nephew's house in Fishkill, so I'm enjoying family time. I enjoyed the 2 games so far. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's not looking how I thought the Knicks was gonna go, but you know what? I see potential. So as long as everybody played to their and stick to their game plan or what their assignment is, we should be all right. That's what I feel.
Okay.
I know Josh will have a whole different take, but
Salute, salute Queen Steph, salute Queen Chris, salute MBK family in the chat out there. Always a pleasure to be on with you guys, and absolutely, you love being controversial. I think that's what makes a conversation, right? For us to agree all the time, that makes it boring. Who wants to agree all the time, right? Particularly when it comes to these Knicks. So it's always a pleasure to be here, and I'm excited for what this season has to offer, and how we're gonna do. So let's get it on.
Yes. Well, let's ease into it. We're going to start off real slow with something that I think is non-controversial. Randall signed a 4-year, $117 million contract with a player option in year 4. I'm happy. I like Randall. I think he's a New York type of player. Yes, I do want to see him play better in the playoffs, but he's still my guy, and I still want him here. Yeah, this is what I want to ask. To me, this signing signifies, like I've said in the prior shows, the Knicks have to decide, are we building around Randall or with Randall, or are we building around or with the younger players, RJ, Mitch, what have you. Mm-hmm. And I said how the Knicks respond in free agency, how they respond in the drafts is going to give us some inkling of the direction they're going. To me, this signing signifies kind of what I already knew with the Tibbs signing, and that is the Knicks are trying to win sooner rather than later. Chris, Josh, is that your take as well? And are you happy with that direction?
I'll go first. Mm-hmm. I am happy with the signing because I feel like Randall comes from good stock. What I mean come from good stock, he was in the system in LA with Kobe. And a lot of his stuff, if you listen to him, a lot of his stuff talks about like how he trained with Kobe, how he learned to prepare for games, stuff like that. So I only feel like he is going to be somewhat better this year than he was last year. I think he knows exactly what he needs to improve on. And for me, just the improvement from the first year to now, just shows that he's locked in. And not only that, the fact that he decided to sign now, because I think he left some money on the table, and I think it was kind of like committing so that they can bring other players in before. So I think he's really committed, and I think they're committed to him. So I do see that they're willing to win now. But some of the signings, and I guess it's a conversation that I had with a friend of mine, people are still not sold on the Knicks, so I don't think that's why we probably got some of the big names. I don't think it had anything to do with the money, but I don't think they still kind of sold on us. It was a short season, some of the things, people got hot at the right time. So I don't think they're really sold. But if we come out and we kind of do some of the things that we did the previous season, I think a lot of people are going to start wanting to be a part of what's here.
When you say especially not sold, do you mean the fans
and what we're
or
trying
free
to
agents? Do? Oh, sorry.
I think the free agents are not sold.
Gotcha.
They're not sold there. Yeah.
Okay. Josh?
Yeah.
So in regards to Julius Randle, I think this is gigantic for the organization, absolutely gigantic, for 2 reasons. One, they were able to get him before he hit unrestricted free agency, meaning they were able to save some money in doing this. Julius Randle could have easily got $50 million more if he would have hit unrestricted free agency, if he would have waited out the year. And many players don't do that. Many players are about getting dough, and I have nothing wrong with that. And I expected Julius Randle to do that. He obviously went in a different direction, which is huge for the organization because that opens up some more money down the road if they want to bring in another big guy to play along with them. Big guy meaning a star. The second reason why this is big is because the Knicks had to extend Julius Randle one way or another, whether it be now or whether it be an unrestricted free agency. Because if not, that means the Knicks will be starting over. They will have, because if you're not sold on Julius Randle, you can't tell me you're sold on RJ Barrett to be your centerpiece and your star for the next 5-6 years. So I think without bringing back Randall, if they would have let Randall walk in free agency, or at least give that message that they were going to let him walk, then that means they would be starting over again. And then we'll go back to having all these young guys and still trying to figure some things out. At least by signing Randall, the Knicks put their foot in the ground and said, this is who we got. And either we're going to build around him or have him supplement another star that we're going to bring in the future, which I think is very huge for the organization, because as we all know, this is the league of stars, and you need stars to win in this league. So if you got one star on the team right now, you got him locked up for another 4 years. Let's go out and get another one, and let's get this team to start winning some championships.
Okay. Shout out to the chat. Somebody, I think, disagrees with you, Josh. You said that if they would have let Randall walk, I don't think you're going to be able to sell people on building around RJ. Is that correct? Something like that?
That's correct. He has not shown that he is superstar worthy yet. I know he's only 21 years old, but again, a lot of question marks there. You can't give RJ Barrett the ball and say, go get me a bucket. He's not at that level yet.
Right. So Andrew Jones, shout out to Andrew Jones. Nobody ever talks about the most important player on the team, RJ. Right. Shout out to Bodega Wi-Fi, Cooking with Shelf Shade, Isaiah. Appreciate you building roots. He said you can hear outside. Oh, that may be Chris, who actually is outside. Shout out to Legion of Knicks, Tricky Nicky, Afro Jetty, Chet Knicks, Mike Morgan, and I think that's Jay Bourne of the select few. RJ Barrett will be a superstar. I hope so, but he's not there yet. So both of you agree that with the signing of Randall, that signifies that the Knicks are trying to win sooner than later and electing to build around Randall, which doesn't mean the young players won't be a part of the team. They will be a part. They will be an important part, but they're not building around them on their timeline. Fair to say?
Absolutely.
All right. So let's talk about the draft and summer league. For those who are not familiar, let's put up the slides of actually who our draft picks are. We've talked about them. We've given our take on them. And when you guys speak, if you want to take the opportunity to give a short take here, you can. But I do have a question about these rookies given their first 2 games. So let's start with, who was the first pick? Grimes? Let's start with Grimes. This is his last season at Houston. He played, I want to say 4 years, or was it 3? 3 or 4 years.
For who? Who was that?
Grimes, the rookie.
4 years. Rookies are signed to at least 4 years.
But I mean, he played 4 years at Houston, or 3? He played 3 or 4 years. He played somewhere else. Then he played at Kansas. Then he transferred to Houston. I think he played 2 years at Houston.
Yeah, he got out as a junior. He came in the draft as a junior.
He came in as a junior. Okay, so he played 2 years. He played 2 years there. All right. So we'll get that slide up soon enough. The other rookie was McBride, the point guard out of West Virginia, 6'2", 6'8" wingspan, and then the 34th pick. Pronounce his name for me, Josh.
Wrong person, but
is it Joe Bidas or Joe
Jokic? Okay. That's his name.
Jokic Robotis. Okay, fine. He's also playing in summer league, and our 58th pick, which is Jericho Sims, is also playing in summer league. So this is the question I have. From these 2 summer league games, has it changed your opinion at all from your initial take on these players? Do you feel more confident in them having, watched them, that your initial take was okay? Or are you like, I don't know. I think I may have been wrong with my initial take.
No, not at all. I feel very confident in these players. I think the Knicks had a really successful draft. In the summer league, there's going to be a lot of jitters early. Shots are not going to fall immediately, but I feel like as the season goes on and Tibbs gets a hold of these players and they go through a full training camp and a full season with some of these other players on the roster, now you have an all-star on the roster in Julius Randle, who they can learn from, RJ Barrett, who's a young player coming into his own. Now I feel like they can learn from those players. So we still have to see it yet. A couple summer league games won't be enough to, change my opinion on these players. I think the draft was still very successful, and the Knicks can do a lot with the draft picks that they have.
Chris, did you get a chance to watch
I
the 2
agree.
games?
I think yes, I did, and I'm kind of impressed with the rookies that we have. I see a lot of potential, and the thing about Tibbs' system is that the 2 guards that we have will definitely flourish because Tibbs' system sets up for the shooters and also the people that are able to drive and create at the basket. So I feel like they're going to be good. And I like Sims. He seems like, he's a good rim protector. He seems like he's ready to help him and fill in those spots where we may need a big. So I'm really interested in seeing how they develop with the coaching staff and how they develop within Sims' Tibbs system. Yeah.
I think it's two summer league games. I feel okay about Grimes. I feel really good about McBride, and I feel really good about Sims. But there is still a small part of me that wanted to pick at number 19 because a lot of players that have a high ceiling, so to speak, fell to number 19. And there's still a small part of me that's like, I know we saved money, but maybe we could have took one of them players and stashed them, and developed them over, a few years and see what happens. And I think we saved like $2 million or so. I'm like, maybe the free agents, if they would have took $500,000 less each player, we would have still been okay. But of course, I'm counting their money. I'm counting their money.
Well, Steph, I
think they're going to surprise us, Steph. I think they're going to surprise us.
No doubt about it.
I think they're going to surprise us, Steph. I think they're going to really surprise us in the system. I think, yeah.
Well, Steph, I believe. It wasn't even about.
I'm gonna put my phone on mute because when I'm not talking.
Okay.
I don't believe it was about the money. I simply believe that the Knicks, they wanted to acquire more assets down the road. That's something that this organization has been doing since Leon Rose got here when he was picked up, when he was hired by Kim Nolan. Their goal has always been to acquire more assets. So I don't believe it was about the money. The Knicks had enough money. They had $53 million in cap space, for God's sake. Their whole thing was about acquiring future assets to be able to potentially move them later or, continue to draft or move up in the draft later on. So I have no problem with the Knicks did on draft night. And I know initially I did because, again, you want something to happen. You see all these other teams, picking players, things of that nature. But once you get out of, 15, between 15 and you can argue 30, it's kind of a crapshoot, like you said. And I still think it's going to be the same way. So, we still have to wait and see. I know Grimes hasn't had his best 2 summer league games, but I'm not going to make a judgment on Quentin Grimes after 2 summer league games. There's still a lot of basketball left to be played.
Yeah, for sure. And second, in terms of summer league, Quickly has been playing the point guard in summer league. I think some of that, and I can't wait to hear you guys' opinion, is that I think that third point guard, given Kemba's possible minute restriction, we don't know for sure, possible minute restrictions, roles, minute limitations, that third point guard position, in my opinion, is critical, right? We're not sure if they're going to, either of them are going to play on back-to-backs. They may have to take other days off as well. Their minutes, like we said, may not reach into the 30s. So that third point guard is going to be important. And I think the Knicks are, seeing if Quickly can be that. I, for one, think that we got question marks at the point guard position as is, and we got more question marks in that third backup. Either it's going to be a rookie in McBride, who hasn't played at this level, Luka, who played internationally, who we don't know if he can play at this level. It remains to be seen. And IQ, who is getting time at the point guard position today. this summer, I should say, who to me does not look like a point guard. So I'm a little concerned about the point guard position overall. What's your take on that third point guard position? Do you think it's super duper important or not quite?
Go ahead, Chris. You got it.
I think it's extremely important. We're just reading about Kemba's knee injury and the plasma, and that he might potentially need a knee replacement. So I don't really know how much he can go this year. And we already know that Rose is he can't play the minutes. So I think between Quickly and Burks, they're gonna get a lot of time at the point guard position. So definitely want to see how that develops. Like if he can take it on, or if he gets into the role that he was before, where he was kind of looking for himself with the 3-pointers. The key is gonna be, because they made a new rule that the offensive player cannot make contact with the defensive player on those 3-point shots. So that might be something that we may have to look at, because he can't use that to his advantage anymore. So I would definitely like to see how he plays through that.
Okay.
In regards to the third point guard spot, I do agree that it's very, very important. However, I'm not that much concerned about it as much as anything else, right? I think with Alec Burks there, the Knicks have a little bit of insurance. So if they need to go back to that situation that they had last season, when they need to play Burks in some point guard spots, they can be able to do so, because the 2 and the 3 are stacked. We got guys that can play those positions that Tibbs actually likes to put on the floor. And I think the Knicks have a good insurance with their guard rotation right now. The Knicks are deep. Let's just call it what it is. The Knicks are very, very deep as far as players who can come in and contribute. So I'm not that concerned about the third point guard spot as much as anything else. I do think it's important. However, I don't see Emmanuel Quickly being a point guard. I think he's much better fitted off the ball. Can he play it if we push comes to shove and we need him to? I think he can be able to fill in for those times when we need to have someone on the floor. But as far as for major parts of the season, I don't see Emmanuel Quickly being that answer, and I think that's where Burks can fill in well, and I think that's the reason why Burks got paid, to be honest. He can be able to fill those spots.
But I see Burke in a similar vein as Quickly. A shot first person, not really looking to get other players involved. It seems like a long time ago, but prior to Rose coming on the team, that second team was really disorganized, not really having a point guard, somebody who was, Rose can be shoot first as well, but he still has some playmaking skills in terms of being able to organize the team. When Burke was out there, I think later on in the season, he definitely did do a better job of that. But I guess my concern is that third point guard coming in and not being able to organize us, not being able to get us in our sets, coming in and just everybody freelancing, actually. And so in a situation like that, I think we won't be able to maximize the other players we have on the court, because whoever gets the ball first, they're looking to shoot. So I think that's my issue, really wanting a third point guard that has that playmaking skills and can kind of organize the team. That's what I'm looking for. But do you think, Josh, that Burke can do that?
I think he can. Given some minutes, I think he can. He is a veteran at this point. I believe I know he's not a natural point guard, but he is a veteran. So I believe it can happen. And all this, again, is hypothetical. It's hypothetical, depending on whether Walker gets hurt and Rose gets hurt. And if people are concerned about that, maybe the Knicks shouldn't have gone in that direction. But we're not going to talk about that.
Oh, we're going to talk about it. We're just not going to talk about it in this segment.
Right. So yeah, I do think Burks can do that. To come in and fill that role. And if you look around the NBA, backup point guard, typically your backup point guard on other teams are not guys that can come in and just facilitate all the time. There's going to be guys that can come in and score, which I think that's where Burks helps us and Quickly can. But I do have those same concerns about Quickly that you have.
Yeah, the other thing I'll say about Quickly, I see some people in the chat. Shout out Sergeant Knicks, appreciate you. Thomas Banks, Odell Perry Pittman, appreciate you. IQJ, people pointing out that IQ had, I forget how many assists today, maybe 6. I think had 6 assists yesterday. But if you watch the game, you could tell that he's just not that facilitator. So when I'm looking at point guards, you have some point guards that can pass you into a point. Like you wasn't even thinking about scoring, and next thing you know, the ball is in your hands and you're under the basket like, oh, wow. Like I didn't even think I was open. Like you have those point guards that talented, that much vision that they can pass you into a scoring opportunity. And then you have those point guards that are aware and they recognize when people are in scoring position and they're able to get you the ball. And then you have those point guards that there's a lot of open players. There's plays to be made, and either they don't see it or they're not able to execute. And I saw that a lot today with quickly. He was double teamed. I want to say Obi, whoever it was on the right side open. Either he didn't see it or he wasn't able to make the pass. Now, I'm not being critical of him, but I'm just saying, really wanting somebody in that position that can see what's there. I'm not even saying pass me into an opportunity that I didn't even see, but just see what's there and be able to execute it. I think that allows the offense to kind of not get bogged down, and guys don't have to work as hard for their shots, right? So Quick today did what he did yesterday. The only difference, in my opinion, is that his shots were falling today. So, I mean, we'll see what they do in that position. I do see him as somebody that's going to come off the bench and give us that scoring that we need. I'm, a little more concerned about the organization and the playmaking at that point guard position. Listen, you don't have to, we don't have to go up during that time, but I just don't want things to fall apart during that time. Any other questions about some comments about Summer League, any of the players? Let's just, before we move on, just talk a little bit about Obi and what you've seen from him. I
was waiting.
And are you encouraged by?
I was waiting.
Okay, 1 minute. And are you encouraged by what you see? And do you think now behind Randall you're going to get more production, or what do you think his role will be behind Randall? Put it that way. Chris?
That's my boy. That's my boy. Everybody should know that by now. I see some potential, but I still don't think he's there yet. I still think he needs to get a little more to his game. And like you were saying before, like realistically, I was thinking about it. Like, he should have had certain skills at this point. He should have certain skills. Like he should have off the dribble. He should have like a mid range. I see that mostly he's trying to drive and he's hitting that 3-pointer. So I just want to see him get some more, like a move or two, and just build on that. Like everything doesn't have to be a dunk. Once he in his mind gets away from that, I think he should be all right. But that's my boy. I'm gonna go with him. I'm gonna go with him. Yeah.
Josh, anything you want to add on Obi?
Big thing with Obi, like I mentioned on some previous shows, big thing with Obi last year was confidence. Out the gate, not having a summer league, and I know Tim is going to say, well, a bunch of other rookies didn't have summer league as well. That's absolutely true. But with Obi, you can see that not having a summer league and not getting those NBA touching the NBA bodies really, really affected him early on with his injury. So it took him a very long time to get started and come into his own. I think it was by game 40 or 45 we started to see Obi start to knock down some shots and gain that confidence again. And what we're seeing now in the summer league from Obi Toppin is the same thing. Confidence. The team is now relying on him to be the number one option in this summer league. And I think that's very big for someone who was drafted number 8 overall to get that experience being that dude. And I think that's going to bode well for the Knicks coming into the season as he spells Julius Randle to give Randle some time off. So I really like what I'm seeing from Obi right now, and he can only get better from here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if his minutes increase, and maybe they will increase a little bit, but I'm more confident that what he gives us is going to be more than last year. There was periods last year where I thought he was just getting minutes to get minutes, and that we didn't even have any other options, so to speak, right? Even if you wanted to use Taj Gibson, he was backing up, he was playing center minutes, because of the injury. So I just think,
Yeah, yeah.
watching him play, he looks a bit more fluid, looks like he knows what he's doing. The 3-point shot looks really good. I'm a little, concerned. I'm surprised that when he drives in the lane, he's not able to finish. He looked amongst the trees. He looks a little bit like Randall, so to speak. Like, Randall will get in there amongst the trees and won't be able to finish. I was just surprised with Obi because of his ups, that seems to be an issue for him when he drives into the paint. Other than that, though, I think his footwork on defense looks much better as well. His ability to contain his man and make them either pull up, pick up the dribble, pass it out. I'm not going to say he's elite, but not many of them are. But I'm encouraged by what I see from him.
Definitely a work in progress. I mean, listen, Rome wasn't built in a day, right? It's going to take some time for Obi to start coming into his own defensively. And I think, in year 2 under Thibodeau, I think, the coaching staff is really going to focus in on how do we get Obi Toppin to improve defensively? How can we get Obi Toppin to recognize, when, the pick and roll is coming, how to guard the pick and roll, and things of that nature, just so he can improve his footwork and just be someone that's serviceable. No one's asking him to be Dennis Rodman or Ben Wallace or any of those great defenders that the NBA has had in the past. We're just asking him to be, good enough to where, he's not a liability out there. And I think that's what he's showing now in Summer League.
Right. Shout out to Building Roots. It's a shame he can't play center because he's not going to take any of Julius' minutes. I mean, I wish he could play small forward, actually. And I wish that Tibbs wasn't so averse to playing a small ball lineup and putting Randall at 5 and Obi at 4. I know we will probably give up something defensively, but it may be a net gain just because of the quickness of those two offensively. But we'll see. I mean, Tibbs is not coaching in Summer League. I'm sure he got better as well, so we don't know what's going to be different with him. He has a better roster. Now we'll get a chance to see if a lot of what he did was because of roster constraints or this is just his philosophy, actually. All right. So now we're going to get into the Knicks roster. And we're going to talk about a few controversial takes. I think if you've heard me on a few of the other shows, including Nothing But Knicks, you may have heard some of this already. That's the downside, if you want to say that, in terms of a show that comes once a week. A lot of times the storylines have already been talked about. I'm on the MBK panel. Sometimes you'll see me on other panels as well, giving my take. So some of this may not be new, but there are plenty of people, family members I know, who only tune in once a week. So this is going to be new to them. So 3 controversial topics, and then we're going to get into Josh and I's the roster we wanted. If you watched the show a few weeks ago versus what the Knicks actually did and how we feel about that and whether we felt like they should have consulted us and went with what we thought they should have done. I'm going to go first on this one. But the controversial take, if you will, is on our front office, So the question is, was our front office competent or elite in this free agency? If you look at Knick Twitter, the front office is getting a lot of kudos for free agency, including the Kemba signings, that they moving in silence, that they're elite, and we snuck under people's noses and made moves as far as the Kemba signing is concerned. And I have to say, I totally disagree. I mean, I think the Knicks front office was competent. I think they did their job. I think they do what every front office does. They call around and see if there's any trades available that's going to make the team better. They set up their board for free agency in terms of who they want to go after first, second, or third. And I think they did that, so I think they was competent. But this is where I'm a little disappointed in the Knicks front office. The Knicks came into free agency with $50+ million in cap space, with point guard as their main target, in my opinion, in a free agency class where point guard was the deepest or one of the deepest positions, right? And we come out of free agency with Kemba Walker, who I like, and I'm going to talk about him more later on, but there's questions about his knee, whether it's degenerative, whether it's something that's going to have to be managed throughout this season, whether he's going to be on minute restrictions, whether or not he can play back-to-back games. So I'm saying to myself, it's one thing if you had a plan A and it fell through, and then this came up and you took advantage of it. It happens all the time. You have a plan, it doesn't work out, something else becomes available, you take advantage of it. No qualms with that. But I'm hearing people talking about this was the Knicks' play. Like the Knicks made the moves that they made first because they knew that this is what they wanted to do and how they outsmarted the other front offices. Listen, you coming into free agency with $50 million and this is your plan A? Again, if you had a plan A, it didn't work out, you moved to this, I'm good. But you cannot tell me this was your plan A. And if you're telling me this was your plan A, I got problems with that. This cannot be your plan A when your backup is another player that also is on minute restrictions. I mean, I don't think it's official minute restrictions, but you just know that you can't play him but so many minutes. So I would say that the Knicks front office was competent in this free agency. I wouldn't say that they were elite and they pulled the wool over people's eyes and they was laying in the cut and they knew that this was coming down the pike. No. The other thing I want to say, well, you know what? We'll get into that. I want to hear Josh take, but I just want to say, if you saw the Nothing But Knicks show the first day of free agency, I was all on Josh. Like, how do you know that they didn't call? Because he was upset because he felt like you had all of this money and you're signing back your players. You didn't, you upgraded the roster some, but we still don't have a point guard. And I was like, well, it's coming. They tried and what have you. But the next day, when they signed Kemba, who I love, and we're going to talk about him more, my only concern is his availability, nothing about his game. I was talking just like Josh. I was talking just like you, Josh. So I get it. My apologies. It was about different things, but pretty much the same thing as far as the front office. But anyway, that's what I have. What do you have to say in terms of the front office? Do you think they were competent or elite in this free agency this summer?
So I think the Knicks front office is competent. If you look at everything, altogether, the Knicks front office is competent. But I think this overreaction of a lot of Knicks fans is because the Knicks front office didn't screw it up. Right. That's what it's really because.
Right.
The last 20 years has been, for the most part, has been terrible. The front office has been bad, led by Steve Mills and Isaiah Thomas's and all of those. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that Knicks fans, because the Knicks front office didn't mess it up, they're just so optimistic and which is good. Be optimistic, but like the Knicks front office is better or smarter than the other 29 teams in the NBA. Give me a break. But let me be unequivocal about this. And please, for those watching in the chat, please go tune into my latest controversy episode where I spell some of this stuff out in more detail. Kemba Walker, the signing of Kemba Walker saved Knicks free agency. You cannot tell me in an offseason where you have $53 million in cap space that your plan the whole entire time was to sign a starting point guard at the end. There's no way. Okay. Now listen, I like Kemba Walker. I think Kemba Walker is a big move for this team. He has the ability to close when he's healthy.
Right.
Outside of the last 2 seasons, Kemba Walker was fairly healthy for the majority of his career. He played in almost 80 to 82 games every season before the last 2 seasons. So he has it in him to do that. So I think he can definitely close some games out, which I really want the Knicks to go out and get a closer, right? But to me, it just felt like, the Knicks were going to strike out again, and they had to come up with something to put something together in order to get a point guard in here. And let me tell you something. Kemba Walker had 2 years and $74 million remaining on his contract in Oklahoma City. Contracts like that don't get bought out all the time. That's not something that happens a lot. So I don't want to say the Knicks were lucky or whatever the case may be. Maybe they were working something behind the scenes. Who knows? But that literally fell in our laps. And I give the organization credit for making that move and bringing them back home. But listen, the Knicks front office is competent. I think, they did a really decent job of bringing in some talent here. But before the Kemba Walker signing, I was not high on anything that the Knicks were doing in free agency, particularly the signing of Nerlens Noel. I feel like we could have got a backup center for less money that can come in and contribute, some of what Nerlens Noel was doing. He can't score, so, that's really a liability with having him out there on offense off the bench. And then I wasn't a fan of Evan Fournier signing as far as the amount of years. I think $18 million, $19 million is what he's worth, but the amount of years when you talk about 2022 and 2023 in free agency, going after free agents, I felt like having his contract on the books was a little bit of a liability. Now, if you want to trade that contract, I feel like that's a different story. But signing free agents outright for the next couple of years, it's not going to be as easy because of Evan Fournier's contract. So I think the organization is competent. The front office is competent. I think they did a really decent job of bringing some talent in here. The team has improved. There's no doubt about that. The team has definitely improved with the Kemba Walker signing. But, initially after day one, I really felt like they could have did more with that money.
Right. What about Derrick Rose? Somebody said in here, big time, appreciate you. I do not like the contract of D Rose. What do you think about D Rose contract? I think it was 3 years, $43 million, or 2 and 1. The last year's a team option.
So, again, he's kind of in the same boat. Like, can he stay healthy? If he's healthy and he can be able to play a lot of minutes, he's definitely worth that contract and then some. But for a backup point guard to be paid, $11.5 million a year or more than that, I think.
14, right?
$14 million a year. With questions about his health, that's just a question mark. But, the Knicks went in that direction, and I'm not mad at that. Could we have gotten someone better? Absolutely. But at that point, he was the last signing of day one. He was the final signing of day one, and that was supposed to be our point guard after day one. So, initially I wasn't happy about that, but, I'm happy the Knicks did bring him back. Could they have went in a different direction for someone cheaper? Yes. Would they have given us the same production as Derrick Rose? Probably not. So I feel like they did what they had to do, but, I think it was okay.
Right. Do you think if they knew they were signing Kemba, do they sign D Rose still?
I don't know. That's a really good question. If they knew that they were signing Kemba, I thought they could have went in a different direction. Particularly by drafting a point guard, having a point guard that was there to draft and Deuce McBride. They probably could have drafted another point guard, a couple of point guards coming out of this draft to be in that position. And if they were really high on quickly playing the point guard position, I felt like they could have went in a different direction outside of Rose. So that's why I don't think they really knew that they were going to sign Kemba Walker outright, because then they wouldn't have gave Derrick Rose that money. Yeah.
Right. Okay. I had another controversial topic before Kemba, but it kind of ties in. So let's talk about that. Listen, this is what I will say. If we knew, and he might be, right? We're speculating here. If Kemba was 100% healthy, if he was the Kemba that left, sorry, my dog just opened the door. If he was the Kemba that left Charlotte, and that Kemba was available in this free agency, I would have took him above every other free agent in this class. I'm sorry, I would have took him over Chris Paul. I would have took him over Ball. I would have took him over Lowry. I just like his game. I like his fit. But that being said, I just feel like I wanted the Knicks to do more as far as that point guard position. Now, everybody is saying that he's better than Alfred. He is, but that's not the point. I think that's not the question, I should say. The question is, was he better than the field of players available at the beginning of free agency? That's the question, because at the beginning of free agency, every opportunity, every choice was on, every option was on the table at the beginning of free agency. So it's really about, was he better than the field, not was he better than Elfrid Payton. So the question, that I was thinking about is, would I take 60% of Kemba or 62 games of Kemba playing 24 minutes a game over somebody like Schroder, who I'm not as high on as a healthy Kemba, over 30 minutes of Schroder at 82 games? That's what I've been mulling around. But my question for you, Josh, is, do you think Kemba was the best option at the start of free agency?
No.
You take care of this. I'm listening to you.
No, I don't. I don't think he was the best option at the start of free agency. Obviously, there was Kyle Lowry, there was Chris Paul that was out there that the Knicks could have, been able to sign. They definitely had the money to do so. I think the biggest thing for Knicks fans was they didn't want to spend the money. You don't want to spend $30 million on a point guard. Well, you pay for what you get, so to speak, right? And that's why I said the Knicks were kind of lucky that Kemba Walker, they were able to get Kemba Walker for $8 million because that's how it played out at the end. In the beginning, that wasn't the case. I really feel like I like Dennis Schroder. I really wanted Dennis Schroder. He was one of the players that I named last season to be an addition to this team to fill that point guard spot. Dennis Schroder has been there. He's played in the playoffs. I understand people don't like him for his last year that he had on the Lakers, but I liked Dennis Schroder a lot. I thought he could have really came and helped this team. At $20 million, I definitely would pay Dennis Schroder $20 million. No question. He would be a definite upgrade for what his abilities are on the floor. So to answer your question, no, Kemba Walker wasn't the best option at the start of free agency. And the end of free agency, absolutely, because of his contract and now what he's making. But at the beginning of free agency, Kemba Walker was not the best point guard.
Yeah, and I think that's what I think about when, and remember, family, this is the controversial part of the show, right? So, this is what we're talking about. Yes, so that's what I'm saying. People are talking about he's better than Elfrid Payton. Yeah, he is, but at the beginning of free agency, was this the Knicks play? Was this the best play? And I'm kind of with you, and maybe I'm overvaluing the point guard position, but I think that position is extremely important. I think availability at that position is extremely important, and I would have rather had a healthy Schroder being backed up by Rose than 2 point guards with question marks. Agree or disagree? That is my take on it. That being said, I'm cautiously optimistic. I think that if Kemba is able to give us 62, 63 games, if he's able to give us 24, 25 minutes a game, him and Rose together, we are definitely a better team. There's no doubt about it. I like the fact that he can play on and off the ball, right? He played in Boston. He played off of Tatum. He played off of Brown. I don't think he's going to have a problem playing off of Randall in terms of skill or in terms of his mentality, right? So I think he's going to fit right in with us. And I like the fact that with him, Fournier, RJ, Randall, you don't really know who's going to initiate the offense, right? It can come from any place. We're less predictable. We're less reliant on Randall. So it is what it is. That's just my take in terms of how we approached free agency. But now that he's in the fold, it is what it is. I hope that Tibbs does a good job at managing those minutes. Tibbs' team seems to be a guy. If you out there, you could play. And he just kind of rolls with it. So hopefully he'll get better at that as well.
Steph, I just want to add, because people in the chat just dissing Dennis Schroder like this guy cannot play basketball. Like they haven't seen what Dennis Schroder was doing when he was in OKC and when he was in Atlanta. Like Knicks fans have to quit doing that. I mean, just because we don't have a player on this particular team and on another team they're not playing well in the playoffs doesn't mean when that player comes to us it's going to be the same thing. We did the same thing with Julius Randle. Right? I mean, listen, Dennis Schroder is a guy that can play basketball. That's what the Lakers wanted him. Now, the way it turned out, it probably didn't turn out that well for him. But I tell you what, if the Knicks would have prioritized a point guard like they should have, I believe either Dennis Schroder would have been here or Lonzo Ball would have been here. And I prefer Schroder over Ball any day of the week. Any day of the week, okay? So please, Knicks fans, please stop dissing these players from other teams who, I guess, have a bad series or have a bad year or things of that nature. I'm not saying Dennis Schroder is the best point guard in the league. You know what I'm saying? And the reason why he is unsigned is because a lot of teams don't have money. Their money they're capped out. So that's the reason why. The Knicks had the most cap space coming into it, and if they would have prioritized point guard at first, Dennis Schroder would be a Knick. I promise you that. But luckily, the Knicks were able to get Kemba Walker at $8 million. So the Knicks lucked out because without Kemba Walker, we wouldn't have a starting point guard. And then, I don't know where we would be. So, just Knicks fans need to chill out for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my question about the front office. Did they prioritize point guard and they just weren't able to sign their target? I can't imagine that point guard wasn't prioritized. Like that is beyond me. In my opinion, I think that should have been the first signing. Like have them, ranked 1 through whatever. And as they start flying off the board, whoever is third on your list, fourth on your list, that's who you sign. To me, in my opinion, I think point guard should have been the very first signing. I think that, and we're going to talk about this more next week as we go through each Eastern Conference team roster and compare it to our roster and really take a deep dive into where the Knicks are. That should be a lot of fun. But I think it's going to be a dogfight. And I think, players being out, players underperforming, things of that sort is really going to make a difference in the standing like it did, which is not any different than it was last year. Shout out to the chat. I forgot who it was, said I disagree. Somebody would say they'd rather have Kemba for $8 million than Schroder for 20. But listen, this is the caveat though. We're not talking about 100% healthy Kemba. You got to take that into consideration as well. So are you willing to take a minute restricted Kemba, game restricted Kemba over a Schroder? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what you have to juggle. Because if this is Kemba at 100%, to me, it's not even a question. I would have took him over any point guard that was a free agent this year. That's how much I really like his game and like his fit. But I think people are underestimating availability. And this is going to be the same Knicks fans. If Kemba Walker plays 42 games like he played last year, these are going to be the same Knicks fans that's going to be in the chat frustrated about why the Knicks have 2 point guards with question marks. Let me get to this super chat. Shout out to Trey B. Ryan. I don't think the Knicks think highly of point guards like Knicks fans do. It could be that they didn't prioritize it. Thank you so much, Trey B. Ryan. You may be right in the sense that maybe they just looked at playmaking skills, and they looked at Randall as a playmaker, RJ as a playmaker, Fournier as a playmaker, that we're going to get it from multiple positions. We're not going to do it the traditional way where you have one point guard making all of the decisions at the top of the key. So in that sense, you very well may be right. All right. Maybe I'll leave the last one so we can jump right into roster construction. But I was going to talk a little bit about DeRozan versus Fournier and the idea of, is it better to have a better fit or the best player? And do you think that even if a player doesn't fit, if they're really, really, really talented, they'll find a way? That's what I was going to talk about. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it just for time constraints as we get to our roster. But any brief thoughts on that?
So the question, the answer to the question is twofold, right? Of course, you always want to have the better players on your roster, but at the same time, it definitely needs to be a fit. I felt like with Demar Derozan, I like Demar Derozan. I think he's a way better player than Evan Fournier. And then again, Knicks fans are going to diss Demar Derozan because he has on one knee wear or anything like that. Well, Evan Fournier has on one knee wear either. I hate to break it to you, Knicks fans, okay? But here's the deal. It all depends on what the Knicks did with all the money, right? If the Knicks had a point guard in place, and then it would be easier for them to get a DeMar DeRozan or Evan Fournier. It depends on who the point guard was going to be. I didn't know the Knicks at the time were going to have Kemba Walker, that they were going to get Kemba Walker. So Kemba Walker made the Evan Fournier signing okay with me, because to me, Evan Fournier, even though he can put the ball on the floor, he can do a lot of different things on offense, he's not going to close the game for you. DeMar DeRozan can close the game for you. That was one of my biggest concerns. Along with the point guard position, can the Knicks be able to go out there and find a closer that they can be able to give the ball to and say, go get me a bucket? That's DeMar DeRozan every day of the week. And I know he doesn't have a three-point shot. Knicks fans are focusing on the three-point shot a lot. Well, if you're so concerned about the three-point shot, how come you can bring back Reggie Bullock, who was a big part of the defense and was the best three-point shooter on the team from last season? Okay, so I get it. Evan Fournier is better than Reggie Bullock on the offensive end, but what we gain in offense from Evan Fournier, we lose on defense. So to me, I would have rather had the Knicks get a closer at that position and DeMar DeRozan than bring in Evan Fournier. With that being said, I think the Evan Fournier signing is okay right now, because now we got Kemba Walker. We got someone like that who we can give the ball to and say, go get us a bucket. And I think that's the important thing, along with Kemba Walker being a point guard. And that, to me, that's what made it okay for me.
Right. Shout out to 914 the finest. That's what Josh is saying. Kemba is a closer. He's definitely 100%. He's hit some big shots. He was there. I don't know what his usage rate was in Charlotte, but he had the ball in his hand a lot. You knew he was going to take the last shot. Everybody knew it. He took it and he made it. Right. So at least we don't have to worry about. And Burke also, I think, can take big shots down the stretch and make big shots down the stretch. So we have more than one person who can take the shot. I think my feeling is, when the players are not superstars, you definitely want to go for fit. But I think when you got those super duper stars like LeBron and Dwayne, which people said wasn't a good fit, and LeBron and Westbrook, who people say aren't a good fit, I think when you got that caliber, I think you go for the best player. I think they tend to work it out when it's at that level. But when you're talking about Fournier and Randall and RJ, then yes, I think you do have to go. You do have to go for fit. Those guys are not, superstars at this point in their career. So in that sense, I do think Fournier was the best signing for us. All right. Now, guys, please forgive my dog again. I thought I had her contained. Obviously, I did not. All right, let's get into our roster. We're going to get, shout out to Sam. Exactly. I agree. Go for fit in our situation. Definitely. All right. So we're going to go back to, it's just Josh and our roster. And we're going to, I think we have the slide of what the Knicks current roster is. And then we're going to pull up, I'll let Josh go first. And then we're going to pull up what Josh wanted us to do in free agency with his roster. We did the show a few weeks ago. And I'm just interested in, compared to what he wanted and compared to what the Knicks did, what his thoughts are. So this is our roster right now, tentatively in terms of starting: Kemba Walker at the 1, Evan Fournier at the 2, RJ Barrett at the 3, Julius Randle at 4, Mitchell Robinson at the center. Our bench looks pretty strong: Derrick Rose at 1, Quickly at 2, Burks at the 3, Obi Toppin at 4, Noel at 5, and then look how strong our situational players are. I mean, we got 2 rookies in there, Miles McBride and Quentin Grimes. We got Luka Vildoza, who may or may not make the team with the Knicks signing Bacon, who played. He was a 6'6". I believe he played shooting guard for, I want to say, Orlando. Kevin Knox, not sure what his situation is, and Taj Gibson. So if anybody goes down to starters and bench, those situational players now, they step up and they become part of the rotation. And I'm okay with that. You know, even if it is, well, I'll see about Luka. But for the most part, I'm okay with that. So now let's bring up Josh roster, what he wanted, including the draft picks. And Josh, I know you remember. This was Josh roster. He wanted Lillard, Barrett, Bullock, Randall, and Gibson. Off the bench, quickly Kuzma, Ntilikina, Anthony, Carmelo Anthony, and Toppin. And then, you know, his situational players, the rookies, Bones Highland, Jericho Sims, and we got him, right? And Novell Pell. We would have been over the cap for this team. So, Josh, this is your final roster compared to what the Knicks actually did. How are you feeling about that?
So, I mean, obviously, everyone knows I want the Knicks to go out and get a big fish because, like I said, like I opened the show with, you need to have stars to win in this league. And I felt like adding Damian Lillard right now, at this point in his career, along with a Julius Randle, and since everyone is so high on RJ, you know, let's all hope that RJ becomes this really, really good star player that we all, that we all hope for. I think that trio of players right there with the surrounding players that you bring back in Reggie Bullock and Emmanuel Quickly and Korkmaz, another shooter out there. I think that team definitely can compete in the Eastern Conference. But the Knicks obviously went a different direction. The one thing I do like about the Kemba signing, though, we talk all the time about his injuries and if he's going to be able to stay healthy. When Kemba Walker was healthy, Kemba Walker was a star. He was an all-star player. Okay, no doubt, no question about it. And he was closing games. He was the real deal. And I know the last 2 seasons he hasn't been as healthy. You know, his knees have been bad, has limited his playing time. But before that, Kemba Walker was playing 82 games a season. So if we can get that old Kemba Walker, the Kemba Walker from 2 years ago that was an all-star, I think we're talking something big here. That's why I have no problem projecting the Knicks to go 4th or 5th in the Eastern Conference this year. I have no problem with that because I'm being positive. The Knicks fans like to say I'm being negative. I'm being very positive, saying that if we can get a healthy Kemba Walker, the Knicks will be a top 5 seed in the Eastern Conference. You can book that. Absolutely on the money. No doubt about that. So I think that, for me, is a little bit of a consolation now that we didn't get Dame. And at the same time, I think we did improve a little bit. We added Evan Fournier instead of Reggie Bullock. It's not the biggest improvement, but we did sacrifice some defense for a little bit of offense. So I think the Knicks, what they did with the roster, I'm fine with. I'm not ecstatic about it, but I am fine with it. And I think they can definitely do something with it.
Right. I mean, one of the questions that I always asked you, and I think I'm clearer on it now, was how are we going to build? Well, let me just answer the chat. What's not up here is the reason, was there was a trade. There was a 3-team trade that got us Dame Lillard. So it wasn't just, because people are asking, how were we able to get Dame without giving up RJ? It's not in the slide, but there was a 3-team trade with the Golden State Warriors, right? Where the Warriors got Mitchell Robinson, they got McCollum. A lot of young players and draft picks went to Portland, and we got Dames, right? So it wasn't a two-team trade; it was a 3-team trade. But one of the things I always asked you was, how would we be able to put a team around 2 superstars or 3 $30 million contracts, and you said other teams do it. So I finally figured out how other teams do it. They either sign a lot of guys to minimum contracts, which, if I'm correct, doesn't really count to what the salary cap. Am I correct about that?
Correct.
Yes. And then the other things they do is, for those players who won't accept minimums, they sign them, they go over the cap, to sign them, and which means that they have to pay the luxury tax. So when I'm looking at the Clippers, the Lakers, Philly, even Miami, I believe a lot of those teams have 5. I know the Lakers may even have, at least the Lakers have 5, but they have a number of players on their roster. They're filling them out with players who are taking minimum salaries. And those that you see signing for 2 years, $24 million or something of that sort, they're going over the cap to sign those guys, which means that they have to pay a luxury tax. So this is how they fill out their roster. So my question to you is, and this is hypothetical, but Dame may still be in play. And the Knicks, the way they structured their free agent signings, they can get off of these contracts really quickly. Like these are, I think, team-friendly contracts, right?
They are, absolutely.
Yeah, they're team-friendly contracts. So, and I don't think Dame is really happy with what Portland did in free agency, but that's besides the point. Well, that's part of the point. Do you think that if the Knicks had Dame and Randall, that these guys that, like when I think about Malik Monk going to the Lakers on a minimum, and I look at Dunn, right? Or was it not? Dunn
Kendrick.
Going to Kendrick,
yeah.
going to the Lakers on a minimum 1-year deal. These guys, I think, made a sacrifice. I think they could have gotten more money, more years, but they wanted that opportunity to play with LeBron and to get a championship. Do you think that with Dame and Randall, those guys would see New York that same way and take less money to come in and play with the Knicks over a Philly or over the Lakers?
Absolutely. No question. Damian Lillard is a top 5, you can argue top 5 player in the NBA right now. Julius Randle is, he made the All-NBA team, so he's top 15 player in the NBA right now. This is New York City. If the Knicks would have landed Damian Lillard to pair along with Julius Randle and found some way to keep RJ Barrett, because in the trade that I proposed, that would be my scenario. There's no question they would have found veteran players to come in and take veteran minimums. And if you think it's not possible here in New York, the year 2014, when the Knicks had Carmelo Anthony and they had Amari Stoudemire, they were able to sign all those guys to play on the bench and play at the end of the bench, Jason Kidd and all those guys, for veteran minimums. That's what they did that particular season. Now, I get it. The Knicks, cracked out in the second round. And if they would have continued to build just like the Lakers did and the Warriors constantly do every single season, they continue to add players. And people ask the question, well, where are these players coming from? How come they're able to do that? If the Knicks would have continued to do that, they would have made some noise in the Eastern Conference for more years than just 1 year. So it is absolutely possible with the New York Knicks. I know Knicks fans hate the term ring chasers. We make up these narratives, ring chasers and, all of that stuff. But guess what? The Knicks haven't won a championship in over 50 years. 50, guys. 50. The Lakers have championships that they can fall back on. The Warriors have championships. Okay? Teams like that are constantly, Miami, they have championships. They're always able to improve their roster and get better and compete for championships every single season. Okay, that's the position I want the Knicks to be in. Compete for a championship. We've had all this cap space for the past 4 years now since we traded Porzingis away, and have not really done anything substantial to improve our roster. You can argue until this season by adding Kemba Walker, who's an injury-prone player. Okay, so yes, to answer your question, Steph, absolutely, it can definitely happen. It's just that Knicks fans are afraid of that because they don't want to get their hopes up too high for a team that won't win a championship. That's the reason why.
Right. And I think the next question, and I think we both know the answer to this, is would Dolan go over the salary cap, pay the luxury tax for a team with Randall and Dame? Like, would he, I guess the basketball people would have to convince him that, that's a good enough 1-2 punch to do that.
No question.
Okay.
No question. Absolutely. No question. You had a player like Damian Lillard on this team with Julius Randle coming into his own in the prime of his career. This team gets you there. They get you close enough where they can be able to compete. A couple injuries happen here and there with Brooklyn or whatever the case may be. The Knicks are in the finals. That can definitely happen. Definitely.
Okay. I mean, that was because I remembered somebody had said that one of the teams had to sign 7 people, 7 players with the minimum to fill out their roster. And I was like, wow, that is a lot. So, but at least I know exactly how it happens. You know, if you use up most of your salary cap on these players, then yeah, you have to go with minimum players and you have to go over the cap to sign it. Okay, so I definitely get it. So now we're going to put up the team I had, and then I'll answer that same question in terms of whether I'm disappointed with what the Knicks did. Hold on, let me just get. Okay, so I wanted Lowry and Powell as my 2 free agent signings. I wanted the Knicks to trade for Sexton and play him off the bench, play for Snell and Carmelo Anthony, and sign Jamel Murray. I had a lot of free agents on my roster: Lowry, Powell, Snell, Carmelo Anthony, Jamel McGee, and I had the rookies Murphy and Mann, and both of them were gone. Trey Murphy went 17 and Trey Mann went 18, so neither one of them were on the board. I mean, I will say that I'm okay with what the Knicks did. For me, it was the approach. If you remember what I said, I did not want the Knicks to go big fish hunting until we knew what we had in Randall. So I wanted them to upgrade the roster. I wanted them to get a veteran point guard. It doesn't have to be a Grizzly veteran, but I wanted them to get a veteran point guard. In this case, I picked Lowry. And then I wanted them to fill out the rest of the roster, whether that was bringing some guys back from our old team, signing totally new players, didn't matter to me. I just did not want them to go big fish hunting yet. I wanted to see Randall perform the second year, see him perform in the playoffs. And then if he did do well enough in the playoffs, then they can go big fish hunting. So I think that's what the Knicks did, right? There's question marks with Lowry in terms of his age, right? There's question marks, with Kemba as well. Fournier, I'm okay with. I think he's a great fit for what we're doing. I still want us to go out. I would feel more comfortable with a veteran third point guard, fine. But I'm okay with what the Knicks did compared to what I wanted them to do, because I feel like they're running it back and they want to see. But I'm not so confident in the running it back. I do think that the Knicks are looking to make a big signing. I just think they haven't found the right deal yet. So I don't think they're with me in terms of let's run it back. Let's see what Randall has. I think the Knicks believe in Randall. I think they believe they already have one, and they're just waiting for the right opportunity to sign somebody to go with him. Any questions or comments?
No, I mean, I just want to say I know our rosters were a little bit different. But,
just slightly.
Yeah, just a little bit. But again, and Nick, I just want Knicks fans to understand something. I'm not trying to go for a quick fix. Bringing in Damian Lillard isn't a quick fix, because I believe the Knicks have a competent roster right now. They have a competent front office right now. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying, in a time where you have over $50, $60 million in cap space for 4 years in a row, and we're making these little marginal improvements here and there, at some point you got to swing the bat. And if it ain't going to be this year, it's going to be next year. You're going to have to pay $50 million to somebody. It's going to happen. Right. You're going to have to pay it someone. So you need to start getting in that mentality of, I'm going to have to spend my money on a superstar. It's going to happen. That's the only way you can win in the NBA. The only way.
No doubt. And you're going to need two. Right? So Randall is getting like 28? Whoever we sign next, it'd probably be equivalent to that, if not more. So I think, him signing the contract that he did does help us in terms of not having to pay so much of a luxury tax, but we're going to probably go over. Once we start building a championship contending team, I think it's hard to build that type of team and stay within the salary cap. I think you're going to go over. And it's just a matter of how much is the owner willing to pay
and Knicks
create
fans
that
act
type
like,
of team.
and they act like we paying the money. Come on, Jim Dolan got it. He got it. You know what I'm saying? They make $2 billion in revenue every year.
Right.
Come on,
right,
y'all. We
right.
ain't spending the money.
Right. All right, we're coming down to the end. Next week, what I want to do is I want to, for each team in the Eastern Conference, maybe not the top 3, but maybe 4 through 10, I want to put up their roster, if not the 15 players, at least their top 6, 7, 8 players. And then I want us to then compare the Knicks roster to that and just kind of we land. For me, I think that Miami upgraded. Atlanta will still be good. I think Washington upgraded with Dinwiddie and Kuzma and Montrezl Harrell. I think Chicago upgraded their talent. How it all comes together remains to be seen. I think Indiana is better given just the coaching change. I think that's going to be for them what Tibbs was for us. Similar roster, maybe some tweaks, but the coaching and that accountability, right? So I think that's going to help them. And let's not forget about Charlotte, who I thought already had a good team. Hayward is healthy from what I understand, and they signed Oubre to 2 years, right? So I think it's going to be a dogfight in that Eastern Conference, 4 through 10. If you want to say Detroit and Orlando may not be in the mix, okay. But even if they're not, that's 10 teams right there that the Knicks are going to be battling with. I think this is going down to the end of the season. I don't think anybody having more, those top 10 teams, I can't see more than a 5-game difference, 3 to 5 game between any of those. I think it's going to be really tight. So I know we like what we did. We're looking at our roster, and as all fans are, we're very hopeful. The Knicks going to be 4th. I heard 3. I heard the 3rd seed. But I think when you start putting these rosters up and you start seeing them, then we can really talk, take a deep dive into that. Any last words, Josh?
No, like I said, I'm sticking by what I said. 5th seed for the New York Knicks, number 5. I think it's going to be very close in the Eastern Conference. For all those people that were talking about the West, dominating the East all the time, I think it's a total different ballgame now in the Eastern Conference. It is so competitive. It's going to be a gauntlet this year in the Eastern Conference. And I think that's really good for the Knicks. I think that's really, really good for the Knicks to be able to compete with those teams to see where we truly are. And if we can get to a 5th seed, I'm totally comfortable with that. To me, that's really good. To me, that's an upgrade considering all the moves that were made in the Eastern Conference this year. I know we were 4th seed last year, but considering everything else that was done this particular offseason within the conference, being a 5th seed to me is an upgrade for this Knicks roster, in my opinion.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I see the Knicks 4 through 6. Any one of those. But again, I think it's similar to last year. If you went on a losing streak, if somebody got injured, look at Charlotte. When Hayward went down, wasn't they like top 4, 5, something like that?
They were up there.
Then Hayward went down and they plummeted to, I believe it was the play-in. So injuries is going to play a part. But anyway, shout out to the chat, Andre Jones, Bodega Wi-Fi again, Sergeant Nicks, Josh, Pudge Nice, Jay Williams, Gregory Castillo, Trey, I lost it, Tricky Nikki, Shop Talk, all of you guys, without, and girls, males, females, girls, guys, without you, this is not possible. Without people wanting to hear what we have to say, this is not possible. For those that, one of the things that happened at the NBA draft party, I was going around and I was asking the guests what were their chat names because I wanted to know, did I recognize any of them from the chat? And what I found out was that a lot of Knick fans are not in the chat. A lot of Knick fans listen to us on the radio, while they're cleaning up, while they're driving. So shout out to you, all of you that listen to us that are not in the chat. You're part of our viewership, and we really appreciate you. And with that, we are out until next Monday, 8 p.m. And thank you guys for being patient with my dogs. I really appreciate it. It'll be better next week, I promise.